All right, I came out here to my shop. It's noon, New Year's Day. I just got a late start, sat around, drank coffee, watched videos, uh, did my morning breathing routine. So I'm good to go. But I did get a late start. I got the handles glued on that. I'm going to get them sanded down today. But yesterday, a while ago, I bought these Scotch-Brite belts that put an interesting finish on knives, a satin finish, a brushed satin finish. But they won't fit on this. There's not enough room between the wheel. I know it looks like it is right here, but it tapers closer to the wheel, back on the other end of the wheel. This is too close to the wheel. So there's no way to get it in there. However, this one, my 1x42, has plenty of room. So I put this on my bandsaw and I cut it in half. And by golly, it works. This is just rough steel. I've done nothing to it. And that's what the finisher puts on it. And that's the roughest one there is. See, this is what it started out looking like. And I'll tell you, that's kind of a nice finish. So I'm going to be doing some experimenting, not today, but I am going to cut the rest of them in half. This is rough. This is medium, and the blue one is fine. So I'm going to get them cut in half, and I will be able to use them. So, and I just thought I'd talk a little bit about my belts. This is my Jet 2x42. This is what I do. Why are you coming off? Hold on one second. Okay. I don't know why that was coming off. But I've got it narrowed down now. I have all kinds of different grades of belts. 80, 40, 120. And then I have some ceramic belts. I go up to 400, but I've narrowed down what works for me and what I need. So I'll be going through these, and from now on, I'm going to be using 60 and 120, and then from that point on, I hand sand. So I've narrowed down my expenses on belts, and I have what actually works for me. The 40s and the 80s, I'll use them up. But when I get my 60s in, I may have them today. That's what I'll use. The 60s and the 120s are what I'm going to use from now on. Okay, let me get them cut in half, get that unwrapped, and start working the handle. All right. So now it begins. And I'll show you, this came out accidentally perfect. You see, to the left and right side of that blade, the front of the handles are, now I haven't put a measuring device on there, but to the eye, they look perfect. Now I got it roughed out. Now the handwork begins. Actually, I put my old belt on the 1x42. I've got a 120 grit, and what I do on that is round this off and knock off the high spots. This is a big fat grip, so I like a big fat grip. I do. And as it will get smaller, this is why I've started stopping, because I accidentally have made a couple smaller than I intended just because I went too far on the big sander, took too much off, trying to eliminate some handwork. So now I stop a little ahead of what I actually want to end up with, and I put it on my next sander, my 1x42, with a 120 grit belt, and I knock all the rough spots off of it, and I knock off the 80 grit sanding marks in these pins because it's really hard to get rid of them once you put them in the vise. And then the handwork begins. And I take my die grinder and I grind out all these grind marks till it looks nice and smooth. And I'll do that on both sides and the back. And then half a day of handwork, and tonight I'll have it in there putting the first coat of poly on it. Not poly, True Oil. Okay, you may not notice a difference, but I do because I'm, inches away from it. It may be harder for you to see the difference. I've got most of the big sander marks out of it. Maybe this will help. It's a lot easier to do the top with the 1x42, and you have to be very, very careful not to, get the belt on the edges that you don't want sanded. The acid etched, stone washed finish. You got to be careful not to hit that. And now it's hand sanding. And I actually what I do is get my die grinder out and I knock the ridges off of this and the grinding ridges off of this and the back, and then I start with a hand sanding. So let me start there and I'll be right back. Get a good look at that because I'll show you what it looks like after I use my die grinder. All right, that's what it looks like with the die grinder knocking off the sanding ridges. I'll tell you what, I got light coming in everywhere plus it's my overhead lights. So let me show you the other side too. There we go, that's better. Boy, it is bright in here. There's the back end. Now the real fun begins, and I mean that. I'm not being sarcastic. I just love this part of the knife making. This is my favorite part, is sanding these into shape. And I sand, and then I fit it to my hand, and I sand some more, and I fit it to my hand. So if your hand is much bigger or much smaller than mine, this probably isn't going to fit. But when I'm done with these, they're comfortable in my hand. That's all I got to go by is mine. So anyway, let me get sanded. I'm starting with what is this, 180? I do believe, yeah, 180. Because this is 120 that I've roughed it out with, and the 180 always does a pretty good job. And this is some really good stuff. I think what's the name of it? It's made in Germany. Vitex. Yeah, I think it's called Vitex. It's made in Germany. Really good sandpaper. Okay, let me get to sanding. All right, I'm going to try and show you. I'm still with the 180, but I use the 180 to shape it, and I'm going to try and show you the difference between what I did was I've sanded it on this side and not on this side. And when I'm done with this side, I sand this, and then I turn it over, and I sand the back side, and then I go on each side, and I spend my time on each side, because once I get the bottom side here, the underside, and the top side here shaped, I don't need to go back, but just to remove the sanding scratches from the previous grit of sandpaper. So let me turn this to the side so the light will be off of it. And there. Can you see what I've done so far? The difference? And then when I'm done with this underside here, I turn it over and I shape the top side the exact same way. And then I start going from side to side. And what I do is I take this backer board here and I sand the grind lines out of the pins. And by the time I'm done, these you can buff these out real shiny. They look real nice when you get up to 400, 500, 600. And when I put the True Oil on them, they look like they're just highly polished pins. And I like the solid brass. Come out real nice. Okay. When I get a little more done, I'll show you. Well, alrighty then. That is sanded up to 600. I love doing this by hand. I don't know why. It just feels like clay in your hands. I would imagine, I've never done pottery, but I would imagine that this is how a potter feels when he's working a piece of clay. Just like I feel when I'm working a piece of wood into a shape that I want it to be in. I can't wait to get to the house and put some True Oil on that. What is today, Wednesday? I have the Caddo sanded up to 800. Now it needs to be heat treated and tempered and then resanded. I'll go back to about 600. I'll go back to actually 400 and then 600 and then back to 800. And then I will let my live stream decide whether we want to buff this out and put a high shine on it or do an acid etch stone washed finish. Sort of like spinach. So there we go. I haven't done much today. I haven't been out here that long. So I'm going to call it a day out here. I'm going to go back to the house. I'm going to put some True Oil on that. And I may vegetate in the recliner. And, I haven't done any eyelid light leak maintenance, testing maintenance in a while. Maybe I'll perform the eyelid light leak test. Okay, so this is New Year's Day. Happy New Year's Day, y'all. So you'll probably see this you'll probably see this Friday. Yeah. So you will see this Friday. And Sunday at noon, for everybody that's interested, noon Central Time. I did a live stream last Sunday, and this Sunday I'm going to do a live stream. And last Sunday what we did was basically make this knife. And now, Sunday we will pick out the handles, get them shaped, get this heat treated and tempered. And I'll tell you what. Well, I don't know. This is going to take, it takes me about, 10 minutes to heat treat it. I got to heat my forge up, and I'll have that done before I turn the live stream on. I got to have my tempering oven heated up. I'll have that done. So, and I'm not sure if I will get, here's my Wi-Fi booster right here. And then let me turn around. And I'm not sure. This is all metal here. And my forge is just on the other side of this wall. So I'm not sure if I'll have a signal out there enough to do a live stream. We'll see. Otherwise, see you Sunday if you're around at noon. Be there or be square.